Her name is Shawn Andaya Pulliam. She is from the Fighting Texas Aggie class of 1987. Woo! She was a first-team All-American in 1987, and she led the Lady Aggies softball team to the national championship that year. That's great. She was inducted into the Texas A&M Hall of Fame in 1992, and in 2012, she became the first softball player to be inducted into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. Quite an honor. She currently serves as the Executive Director for Foundation Development and Sustainability for the VOOM Foundation. So please join me in welcoming Shawn Andaya Pulliam as she speaks about the power of encouragement.
Howdy. I'm a keep it real kind of girl, so I'm going to be honest with you. It's been a long time since I've been on campus, and to be here today in this capacity is really an honor for me. I'm very, very excited. This year's staff appreciation theme is engage, encourage, and empower. And I'm hoping in the next 30 to 40 minutes I'll be able to inspire you through a series of stories and demonstrate how the power of encouragement changed my life. Just so you know, that's my Bitmoji up there. I think she looks exactly like me. She'll be appearing periodically through the presentation. I like to have fun when I'm up here. I gotta push this button. So my story begins with me. That's me. I was about 5 years old. I was born and raised in Stockton, California. Although I have some of the fondest memories of growing up in Stockton, it was not without its issues. Stockton is currently ranked number 8 on the Forbes list for the worst cities to live in America. Although it was very tough, I'm very, very proud of where I came from, and I still consider it my home. My family was very, very poor. We were paycheck to paycheck. We were on government assistance at one time. My parents didn't want to be that way, but we were. And they worked very hard to make sure we got off of it. Going to college was not really an option for me, simply because we didn't have the money for me to go to college. So it wasn't something we talked about in my household. Crime, violence, and drugs were all around me. A report said that I had a 1 in 83 chance of being killed, raped, or attacked while living in Stockton. Not only did I live in a tough neighborhood, but I lived in a tough town. I lived in the toughest neighborhood in that town, off of a street called Charter Way. It was on the south side of Stockton, and they've renamed it now to Martin Luther King Drive. I can still remember, as a child, when I was young, the violence in our neighborhood. I can remember laying in bed at night, and we had 2 gas stations behind. We lived off Charter Way, and the back side of my house there was a field, and then there was 2 gas stations that were robbed all the time in the middle of the night. And I still can remember some of my memories when I think back about this. I can still remember laying in bed and hearing the alarms going off from the gas stations, from them being robbed. They were robbed all the time. I'd hear the alarms, and then I'd hear the pitter-patting of feet running through the field. And then I'd hear the chain link fence, and then I'd hear the feet go onto the other side and hit the ground. And then I'd hear the pitter-patter of the feet go right past my window. And I remember when I was little, I yelled out to my mom. I was like, "Mom, what is that?" The first time I heard it. She's like, "Don't worry, it's just a robber. Go back to bed." So I did. I mean, I didn't know what else to do, but so, that was kind of my reality when I was young. There was another time I can remember when me and my family were sitting around in our house watching television, and we heard these loud bangs, and all of a sudden there was cops in our house. SWAT team cops, I don't know what they were. Basically, they were looking through the neighborhood because someone had done some kind of something. I don't know. They never told me the story, but there was someone running loose in our neighborhood, and so they just broke into our house, came through, and ended up finding the guy on the neighbor's porch running from something, but we got to, watch him, arrest him, and all that kind of stuff. But this was my everyday life, and I wanted to share that with you because I wanted you to understand that I wasn't really prepared to come to Texas A&M University, and it started back then. But not all was grim in my upbringing in California. I was a total tomboy, and I loved to play sports. That was my outlet. I played with boys all the time because girls just weren't competitive enough for me. I want to win in everything I do. I'm not going to lie. So I loved to play tackle football, not flag football, tackle football. So I played with the boys, and I wasn't into the Barbies and all that kind of stuff, but sports was my outlet. I was about 8 years old when I learned how to play softball. My dad was a softball pitcher in California. Fast pitch softball is very popular in California. And my mom was very athletic. My dad would sit on the side of our house and he'd pitch to my mom. He'd practice almost every day. So I would sit on the stoop and I'd watch him. And one day he threw a wild pitch and I ran to go get it. So I ran and got the ball and I came back and he goes, throw it to me. So I pitched it to him and it was a perfect strike. And he goes, I bet you can't do that again. I was like, one thing you don't ever tell me, I bet you can't do that. I did it again. I guess because I watched him do it, I picked it up. So he said, do it again. So we sat there for an hour. This is one of those dad sports moments, right? We sat there for an hour and I pitched perfect strikes the whole time. And he's like, you're awesome. Let's go sign you up for softball. So there I was down at the, Bobby Sox signing up for softball. And that was my first year of playing softball when I was about 8 years old. My accuracy changed as soon as I signed up. I got out to the first game, and it was a disaster. I'm gonna keep it real again. I found out over the years, as I've been coaching softball too, that what you look at is where you throw. Okay, so I was admiring everybody's pretty faces when they got up to bat, and I continued to hit people in the head. I didn't hit them anywhere else, but in the head. So it was really sad. And I was just kind of one of those kids. It wasn't that I didn't care. I was just very tough, around the edges. And I was like, oh, come on, get over it. It's okay. You're going to live. But the kids were actually, when they were in the batter's box, they were crying before they even got into the. They were on deck crying before they even got into the batter's box. The coaches were like easing them up to the batter's box, and sure as anything, they'd get in there, crying and like shaking, and I'd pitch the ball and bam. I mean, it was just. So it was actually really amazing that I actually continued pitching. It didn't faze me though. I just kept practicing. I got better, and eventually continued to play and played travel ball as I got older and all that kind of stuff. So that's the launch of my softball career. High school for me was very tough. I fell into the wrong group of kids. And it wasn't that I was looking for those kids. I was just around them all the time. I didn't ask to be over there. Those were my friends. It was either have no friends or go with them. So I didn't do too well one semester, I'm going to be honest. And I found out that not going to school was actually funner than going to school. At that time, that's my mentality. But it was about my junior year of high school when someone was out at the softball field with me, and they came up to me and said, hey, come here. And I cannot remember who this was, but they said, you're really good at that. I think you could go to college. And I think that was the first time I thought, maybe I can go to college. So this was about my junior year. I hustled back into summer school. I decided I'm going to try to do this. I got my grades together. I worked out profusely. And in my senior year of high school, I got my first call from a coach from Creighton University, and they asked me if I would come visit. My hometown, the University of Pacific, there was also a Division I program there also, and they wanted me to visit also. But I knew I would probably not go to school in my hometown. Although it was a private university, it was amazing, beautiful campus, because I knew I had to get out of my environment to succeed. So I went on my visit. So those two schools were looking at me my senior year. I went on my visit, and Creighton University was nice, and it was kind of my only option because I was not going to stay home. So I came home, and I get off the plane. My dad said, "How was it going?" Said it was great. And he goes, "Oh, guess what? The coach from Texas A&M University called, and he wants to know if you'll come do a visit." And I said, "Who? Where?" And he said, "Texas A&M University." I said, "Where is that?" He said, "College Station, Texas." I said, "College Station? That doesn't sound like a town to me." So within the next week or so, I ended up coming to College Station. And it was like spring break or something. There wasn't a whole lot of people here when I came and did my visit. But I will say, it was an awesome experience. I got off the plane, and everybody was so freaking nice. And this is honest truth. I was like, people in California are just not this nice. But it was a great experience. And I got on the plane, and I saw the facilities, and I met some people, and I decided on that trip home, I told my dad, I said, "I think I'm going to go to Texas A&M University." That's basically how it happened. So my road to Aggieland was very interesting. As I mentioned to you, I was not highly recruited. 2 schools were interested in me, and I knew I wasn't going to stay home. I have a few truths about my recruitment. First, I was not. All these kids, they look at me. I've been All-American. I'm a national championship team, all this kind of stuff. And people think I was recruited by everybody. Wrong. I was recruited by, really, 3 schools. I was not the top choice for pitchers. I accidentally ended up here because the choice he had didn't want to come here. She wanted to go Northwestern because she was super, super smart. So it was through a word of mouth from the guy that lived in, the girl was actually from my hometown, but the guy that helped get her here for recruitment said, there's another girl here in this town that actually is probably a better athlete. I don't know about student, but she's a better athlete. So he gave me a chance. And it's also true that my coach never seen me pitch one softball before he offered me a full ride. So I just felt like it was meant for me to be here. And the last fact is that it was that opportunity that changed and saved my life, and that was to come here and play for Texas A&M. I will say, after saying all that, I honestly feel like I hit the jackpot. As I mentioned, I played in 3 national championship games. I'm only here 4 years, and I played 3 of those. I was in a national title game. That's freaking, I didn't realize that, until I got out of it. That's freaking hard to do. It really is, because I'm looking, I'm like, these Aggies now, I'm like, please make it, please go. I just see how hard it is for them. But I expected to be there. Every single time. We played in 3 title games. We were runner-up 2 years, and then my senior year, another blessing came my way. My very last softball game, I won a national championship. There's not too many people that can say that either. 3-time All-American, all that stuff. The awards are great. It's not why I played softball, but I just want to mention them to you to see the gravity of where I was going. First softball player to be inducted in the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. And most importantly, I was the first person in my family in 1988. After we won the championship in 87, in 1988, I was the first person in my family to attend and graduate from college. And this was huge. After Texas A&M graduation and softball career is over, it was time for me to start my professional career. Oh, I went and got my nails done so I could show this to you guys. Those are my 2 rings. If my husband would have done his job, I would have had 3 when I left. I'm just kidding. You guys know my husband? My husband is Al Pulliam. He works at the A&M Foundation, and he does the radio for men's basketball with Dave South, so maybe you guys know him. But those are my rings, and I'm very, very proud of them, so I decided to take a ring and a picture of them and throw them in there. So after I left, it was time to go get a job. And just like probably a lot of kids, I was like, what am I going to do? I moved to Houston and worked some jobs that weren't stellar, but I needed a job. I needed to pay the bills, right? So it was in 1992 when I got a call from Coach Brock, and he asked me to come back and be the assistant softball coach here. I gladly did that because I thought it was a great opportunity. You know, you got to stay away from A&M for a couple years before you're willing to come back after you graduate. And I came back and I was assistant coach. And then in, I guess it was like 96, he resigned. And the coach that's here now, actually, Coach Evans, offered me a position to stay. And I was at a crossroads. I said, you know, I can stay and coach, continue again. Or there was something in me that said, I kind of want to try something different. Everybody here knows me, because I was living here in College Station. I said, everybody here knows me as a softball player, and I'm way more. And I needed to find out what that was. So I took a leap of faith. I didn't have a job. I took a leap of faith, and I decided to go do something different. So in 1996, I started my nonprofit career, and I worked here at the Boys and Girls Club of the Brazos Valley. Amazing organization. I absolutely loved working there, working with at-risk kids. Every one of those kids we educated, keep them off the streets, fed them, had programs for them. Through those kids, I saw me. So I really enjoyed doing that, and I was the vice president for resource development and raised money and did events and all that kind of stuff. I loved that job. In 2002, I became the executive director of the Children's Museum of the Brazos Valley, and I absolutely loved that job too. I really do like working with kids because I'm kind of a big kid. I'm kind of, you can see my Bitmoji again. I'm a big kid, and I love being around children, and I love making a difference in their life because they're so impressionable, and they're so honest, and they're so authentic. In 2008, I went on to Scott and White, and I became the director of major gifts there, and I did the Children's Miracle Network program. That was part of the thing. When I went over there, I wanted to do Children's Miracle Network because I wanted to continue to raise money for kids. And to do it in a healthcare setting was pretty awesome. I started seeing how funds, when you raise them, how they directly can impact lives. 2011, I left and I went to CHI St. Joseph Health, where I was the director of major gifts there. My biggest accomplishment there, I would say, is we raised $25 million to build a new trauma center. And that's when I met Dr. Vincent Ohaju, and I was introduced to VOOM Foundation. And in 2017, I became VOOM Foundation's first executive director. I'm going to go back to Dr. Ohaju. I met him when I was there at St. Joseph. I was tasked with the job of raising money through physicians. And do we have any physicians in here? I don't want to talk bad about you, but they don't give. Physicians and lawyers are kind of hard to get money out of. So I created a program, and through the program, it was a little group of society, and it was called Kadusha Society, and they basically buy a membership to it and all that kind of stuff. So I elbowed my way in with the physician recruiter and said, I want to meet all these physicians on the first day, because they weren't giving money, so I knew I had to change the culture. So the best way to do that is to let people know from the get-go, you're at a faith-based hospital, and we're going to ask you to give back. So I asked him the first day I met him if he would give me a gift for a program, and he said he would get back to me. He called me a couple weeks later, and he said, Shawn, that money that I promised, or that money you asked for, he said, I'd love to give you that gift. He goes, but I would like to visit with you if you don't mind. I was like, sure. So I met with him, and he explained to me what VOOM Foundation was. And I was very intrigued by this organization. Basically, he told me the story. We were at lunch. He told me the story, and I was sitting there, and my mouth was wide open. I said, hang on a second. I said, so you're telling me that you assemble a medical staff across America, you get donated heart valves, you carry those heart valves on the plane with you because he doesn't want to put them, in the belly of the plane because who knows if they'll even make it. You go over to Africa or Nigeria, you operate on patients that would never be able to have this surgery because they're indigent. You nurse them back within a 2-week period, and then you get on the plane and you go. And he goes, yeah. And I said, okay, what do I have to do? And from that day forward, I was a volunteer for about a year and a half, until I decided I was going to make my moves and they were going to hire me. So VOOM Foundation is, VOOM Foundation's mission is to provide impartial, sustainable healthcare programs dedicated to quality, with a particular interest in supporting the underprivileged and underserved. And the quality part is big, because in the next couple of stories I'm going to tell you, you're going to see what lack of quality really is. But first I'm going to show you a real quick video. It's a short one, but this is from our April 2017 mission. In 2013, in Nigeria, there was 173 million citizens, about. There was 0 open heart centers. And 65% of the country was living in poverty. I don't know, you guys are probably better at math than me, but that's a high number of people that don't have access to health care. In 2013, VOOM Foundation restarted the Open Heart program in Nigeria. We did this by formulating a partnership with the University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital. We shipped 40-foot containers full of medical equipment, allowing us to set up 2 operating theaters and 4 ICU beds. We send medical teams from across the U.S. several times a year to teach the local staff best practices and care based on quality pertaining to open heart surgery. To date, VOOM leads the entire country in Nigeria, a nation now, in 2018, of 188 million citizens in open heart procedures. As the executive director, I'm very, very proud of that statistic. But as a human being, I'm actually kind of embarrassed. It just doesn't seem fair. In March of 2016, I went on my first medical mission, and these are all the lives we saved. They came back that next year and visited, and they always come back and say thank you. And I didn't recognize any of them. I'm going to be honest with you. They were so sick when they come through the door. I mean, some of them are hunched over because their hearts are huge. They're super, super skinny. Their faces are all flushed, and I mean, it's hard to explain. But I'll always treasure this picture because that was my first medical mission, and I'm very, very proud of this group. They come back, and I'm Facebook friends with some of them. But I wanted to show you this because our work is extremely impactful, and it's very, very powerful work. But VOOM is not all about heart surgery. It's just us addressing the need. That's why we're doing heart surgery, because there was none. So if we're a healthcare organization that's trying to address the need, we're going to go where the need is, and there's no heart surgery there, so let's provide it. We're there actually to raise the standards of care and to help indigents. Before I continue with this next story, I have some questions for you. You guys get to participate and stretch at the same time. I have a few questions for you. How many of you have kids? Please raise your hand. Okay. How many of your kids owe you money? Please raise your hand. That was the same amount of people. Mine owe me $1.5 million. I've been adding it up. The first $1 million is for the shoes and the what are those socks called? The elite socks. Oh my God, they were so expensive. The shoes, the elite socks, the cars, the insurance, you name it. The other 5 is for pain and the 0.5 is for pain and suffering. But I asked you that because I want to know how many of your kids are in charge of their own health care? Okay, wait a minute. Hang on. That are 15 years old. Yeah, I can't wait till I raise my hand on that one, too. How many of your kids have to raise money for their treatments or their surgery? Nobody. How many of your kids have to find their own products to have their surgery? How many of your kids have to recruit their own blood donors to have surgery so they can save money? How many of your kids drive, hitch rides, or walk home from surgery? How many of your kids have had to find a place to stay and drive themselves to and from radiotherapy? This is Victor Ogbona. He was 15 years old when I met him. I met him because VOOM, when we go and we do the heart surgery, we actually go down into the wards and we visit with indigent patients. And if they're stuck there in the hospital, because if you're not paying your hospital bill, you have to stay in the hospital until you pay it. So he was there for 4 months. And VOOM, because we pay attention to indigents, we give them the money to go home because it's not healthy for them to continue to stay there. I met him. He was down in the wards, and he was in the surgery unit, and he just had he's been there for 4 months. He had a tumor from behind his eye, and in his head removed. VOOM released him from his responsibility, from his bill. After his release in April 2017, he needed another surgery to close his head because he had an open skull because, they can't close it until the swelling and all that kind of stuff goes down. It took him 4 months. So he had to come back again for another surgery after he left. He was responsible for his care, so it took him 4 months to find the product to close his skull. He went from hospital to hospital, and I know this because he Facebook friended me. And because I wear scrubs when I'm there, I think he thinks that I know something medically. I know nothing. So he Facebook friended me, but he Facebook friended me actually just to say thank you. And I hope you made it home safe. And I thought it was so sweet for a 15-year-old. So as he's trying to prepare for his surgery, it took him 4 months to find the product. He went from place to place looking for it. And this is kind of a rare product in Nigeria. It's here on every corner in America, but it was a rare product to close his skull back up. It took him 6 months, the entire 6 months, to help raise the money for his next surgery to close his head. It took him weeks to recruit his blood donors. Several times he told me he'd go to get his blood donors donors wouldn't show up. So I got kind of frustrated. I said, well, how much does it cost to, get blood at the hospital? And he's like, so-and-so Naira. I said, no, American dollars, please. $25 is what it costs for him to get blood. But this is how poor people live. He had to go find people to give the blood. It took him weeks to get things finalized with his surgery because the surgeons in Nigeria, they'll go on leave because they're government workers. They'll go on leave, and it might be a month. They don't notify anybody. Here your physicians tell you when they're gone or there's somebody to back up or whatever. They just leave. During his 6 months while he was preparing, the next 6 months while he was preparing to have this next surgery, he had continual seizures, and one of them was so severe that he had to be rushed to the hospital. As he was getting things together, and I was talking through him through Facebook, it was getting closer for me to come back again the next November for a mission. So I was like, oh, well, this is great. He might end up in the hospital right while I'm there. So I get in the airplane. We're getting ready to go over to Nigeria, and we land in Paris or somewhere like that. And I get a text message from him. And he was told that he couldn't have surgery because the ventilators were going to be used by VOOM Foundation coming to do a medical mission. I was devastated because it was almost like, wow, I'm, raising all this money to get people here, and it's hindering this kid's ability to get care. I think they did the surgery regardless of whether or not we had a free ventilator in case something happened to him. But when I got there, they ended up doing the surgery, and he did very, very well. And I walked into his room after his surgery, and his mom was crying. And I thought, wow, as a parent, I'm like, oh my God, my kid's alive, he's doing good. His mom was crying. I said, ma'am, what's wrong? And she said, I'm just upset. And I said, why? I said, he looks good, he's come out of it. She's like, no, we spent $600 on this product, and they've told me that we no longer need it. That was her main concern, which me as a mother was really, really hard, because my main concern is the health of my child. But her main concern is her finances, and not that she didn't care about her son, she loves her son very much, but it's her finances, and how am I going to make it without this $600? Weeks after surgery, he was asked to come back to begin radiotherapy, but the doctor was again on leave. He came back weeks later, and the doctor was finally there, and he was given his prescription for radiotherapy, and guess what? The radiotherapy machine was broken. 3 months later, he begins his radiotherapy, and halfway through the radiotherapy, the machine breaks down. I don't know if you guys know anything about radiotherapy, but you have to do it like every day. So he took a 2-week lapse on his treatment. I just found out last week that he went back and got scans done again on his head. And someone told him that he was going to have to go back and have radiotherapy again, but actually he ended up getting his scans over to the neurosurgeon, and his tumor is still there. So I don't know. I wish I could say, oh, well, the radiotherapy is not working. I don't know. It's not an integrated health system like we have here, where all the parties are talking and telling each other the kid just goes to wherever. There are thousands of kids in Nigeria, just like Victor. I mean, in my opinion, it's geography that gets these people. They're just born in the wrong place. They're suffering. They are just suffering because they were born there. And as a human being, it's just really hard for me to ignore. Growing up poor and vulnerable makes me understand all this. Of course, American poor and vulnerable is really not African poor and vulnerable. It's two completely different things. I thought I was an at-risk kid. I thought I was poor and vulnerable, but after seeing all this, I know I really wasn't. Victor's story will continue, and I'm confident if anyone can beat this disease, he will. I have one last story that I want to share with you. And this is a gentleman that showed up my very first medical mission. And Dr. Ohaju brought him to me, and he said, Shawn, I want you to meet this guy. I don't know his name, but I'll never forget him. He said, I want you to meet this gentleman. And I was like, okay. So, I met him. He said, grabbed both of my hands and squeezed them tightly, and he said, thank you so much for all you do. Thank you so much for you doing. And I was like, oh, I said, you're welcome. I said, and Dr. Hodge would tell me his son had surgery, the last mission. I said, sir, I wasn't on the last mission, and I'm not a medical person. I'm not actually in there putting the heart valves in. So it really feels awkward for me when they thank me. But, they're thank you. And I said, sir, well, how's your son doing? And he goes, oh, my son passed. And I said, I just like, what do I say here? And I said, your son passed? And he goes, yes, he did. He goes, shortly after the mission. And I said, okay. And I just sat there, and I was like, I don't know what to do here. But he was still holding my hand and just thanking me. And I said, sir, this is my first medical mission. I said, and you're thanking me, and I just don't understand why. I don't understand why you're here thanking me when your son passed away. He goes, no. He goes, you don't understand. And I said, no, I don't understand. And he said, until VOOM came along, we had no hope. And I thought the importance of our work when we went there was giving people life and fixing their hearts. But it really was more than that, and it was restoring hope and faith in people that there is a solution. I think that was the moment I decided I'm going to make these people hire me. So that's my last story, and I'm going to wrap this up very quickly, and I guess I can answer questions if you have some. I just want to say I've come a long way. I was born and raised in a tough neighborhood, granted an opportunity to receive an education through a God-given talent, recruited by a softball program that allowed me to reach the highest pinnacle of my sport, graduated from the greatest university in the nation, and now to use the obstacles and struggles in my profession and to reach out and to help those in both my community and around the world is just the hugest blessing. I cannot even begin to tell you. But I did not get there by myself. I came here today to do this presentation, but mostly to thank you. I want you guys to understand how important you guys were in my life and the lives of those you touch every single day. Your job is so important because you're shaping the lives of kids for the future, our future leaders. Not all kids show up here at Texas A&M with amazing GPAs or high test scores. Some kids show up here with no plans, but just huge hearts and big dreams. I was one of them. I'm always moving on to bigger and better things, and I can do this now because I'm a product of your work, your encouragement, your empowerment, and your engagement. And I'm going to add another E word on there, your empathy. I was a hot mess when I arrived here. This is the truth. I was a hot mess when I arrived here on campus, and I stand here today, and I hope I make you proud. I'm not done. I still have lots of work to do, and I believe my future is brighter than ever. I want to thank you all so much for your time. It was a pleasure being here, and to be able to come back in this capacity, I never thought I would have anything important enough for anybody to want to say, and to stand here in front of you today is just an honor. So, thank you.
Thank you, Shawn. We have about 5 or so minutes. If anybody does have any questions, we ask you again to use the microphones on both sides.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so just to start off with, I'll try to answer your questions. If I can't answer your questions, I'll get you an answer for your question.
Well, mine is not, excuse me, the allergies. Mine is not a question. It is, I appreciate everything that you had to say. And I am with you because while you were in California dealing with that, I was in Detroit dealing with that. And when I got here to Aggie Land, I thought the same thing. These are some of the nicest people. Oh my God, why are they so nice? You know? And so coming from that, the people here do shape us and change us and creating us that, wow, I can be liked. And so I appreciate you sharing.
And you hit that on the head, that I can be liked.
Yes.
Because what you see before you hear you today was not how I showed up here on this campus. I don't like really speaking in front of a lot of people. I was very sheltered, a lot of things. I just have evolved. And I've evolved, I know, because of my university. But I've also evolved because of the people around me.
Yes.
And I appreciate your words. Thank you. Yes,
else?
ma'am.
Did you ever happen to go back to your hometown and just try and inspire those people from your high school or that area? Did you go back and impact them? Or
You know, I'm glad you asked me that question because I actually went back after 30 years I was inducted into a Hall of Fame there, and I went back after 30 years just recently. And I'm very unconnected from that town. I think that's a great idea, and I do actually want to do that at some point in time. I had an opportunity last year to go to the Philippines and teach softball. And I asked them, I said, please take me into the hardest neighborhood and show me where the kids are that want to play softball. That's what I want to work with. That's who I want to reach. So giving back is absolutely 100% everything to me, because I want to change as many lives as I possibly can. But I'll be honest with you, it took me a long time. Everything I told you to here today was me being completely vulnerable, and it took me a long time to understand where I came from, why I went through that, how I ended up here. I was afraid of that for a long time when I got here because I didn't want to go back to that. But I think now I've come to grips. My life has come full circle. I see why I was born poor and vulnerable. I see why I had to struggle. It's because I'm put here on this earth to fight for those that have the same situation. So going back to my hometown, I would absolutely. Actually, people have asked me to come back and do clinics and stuff, but I'm super busy. But I will definitely do it at some point in time. Yes, ma'am.
Hold on one second.
Oh,
Got a
I'm
mic
sorry.
coming.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to say I appreciate your transparency, your openness, and your honesty. Sometimes people, and I'm saying this not in a negative way, sometimes people leave the outhouse and make it to the White House, and they forget their humble beginnings. We cannot help anybody being up at this level when most of the people are down on this level. So I really appreciate your honesty and openness and what you are doing to make a difference in so many lives.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Question
Yes.
down over here.
What advice would you offer to those of us who are in staff at a university of this size that we could maybe better meet the needs of a child who maybe comes to this university and doesn't have the highest GPA, has a little bit more of a challenging circumstance?
It's funny because those kids, they're hard to reach sometimes because they don't want to identify themselves. I think open your ears and listen, and sometimes you just, you're here on Texas A&M University, you want to do good in your life. But just opening your ears and your heart and listening to them, because, what's the big deal if I took a test a little bit later, or you gave me a little bit of extra help, or someone guided me in another direction? What's the big deal? But I think sometimes it's, because my kids are in college now too, we got to play strictly by the rules about everything. Well, rules are there, and they should be followed, but there's also people behind rules. And I think opening your heart and your mind and having empathy for those that aren't showing up in the perfect package, I think, I'm always attracted to the person that's struggling the most. I don't know why. Maybe it's because that's kind of how it was for me. I want to help them. I want to help them because I want them to understand. Because sometimes people don't know that they have that potential. They got to be led to it. So open your heart, open your mind, and, just listen. One thing I try to do with people, and I can be accused by my husband as not a good listener, but it's just listen to what people have to say.
Time for one more. Anyone else? One more down here in front.
I came in a little bit late in your speech, and I guess my biggest question that comes up in my mind is, what was the biggest encouragement for you? Like, what while you were here was the biggest motivation, encouragement for you to reach your potential? Was there a particular person or people that were involved in your life at that time?
I think it was a lot of people, to be honest with you. Like I said, I just got on this path and I just kept going. When people say, go do that, or whatever, I just kind of, if it was good people, I just trusted what they were saying and I went and tried to do it. I didn't know any better. So I think you just have a strong faith that your path is your path, and you can't really change it. You know, I think only one person can change it, and I got on it, and I just haven't stopped. I've had lots of obstacles in my life, but every single obstacle has, I think, because it's always in my heart to look in the positive way of things, has catapulted me to another great thing. I just don't look at the negatives of anything. And I will tell you, I think one of the biggest keys to my success is I will out-hustle anybody. I think you just have to have the right heart and the right passion in anything you do, and you'll be successful at it.
Great. Thank you, Shawn.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure being here.
I'm going to give you a wide berth since you like tackle football. Yeah. Don't want to get in your way. Well, that was great. You know, it speaks so well of her story, and there's literally thousands of other stories that we've heard, and the impact that the university has, not only here in College Station, but you know, across the nation and across the world. And again, you know, we can't say enough of what the part that all of us play in that. And whether you're going on a medical mission or you're just helping, you know, a student get through, you know, a class or an exam, it's all the same, and it all matters really, really well for that person and for the way the world is moving. So, again, thank you for that. Time now for another raffle drawing. So, if you have your tickets, pull your tickets out. If you don't have a ticket, raise your hand real fast. We'll try to get one in your hand. How many are we giving away now? All right, we have 3 more. We have another Gold's Gym membership, so if you were disappointed the first time, we have another one. So, everybody get your numbers out. Are you, oh, am I drawing? Okay, I'll draw. All right. Ticket number ending in 363. 363. Right over here, all right. Congratulations. And we do appreciate all the sponsors. All of these gifts were donated to you, so there will be no W-2 information for you. So that's good. And so we do appreciate, and also the members on the Staff Appreciation Committee that went out and got all these gifts. They were great. The next one we have is a Morningstar Storage, 3 months free storage rental on a 5x10 or 10x10 heating and cooled unit. And check your tickets for 552. 552. All right. Okay, the last one that we have. Hub Collaborative, full-day use of large conference room and pita pit, 1 platter of pitas, 10 pitas, pita chips, and dip. So, if you like pitas or have a conference or need some place to go have a party. And this one is going to go to 613. All right, 613. Thank you. Okay, we have another short break, so if anyone needs to get a drink or a snack, restrooms in the back, be back here right before 11 o'clock, and we'll get on with our next speaker. Thank you.